Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Crafted Cocktails. As always, I'm your humble bartender, Rowie. Before we start, just a few events coming up. This Friday we have our dinner and a movie, which is Casablanca. So we're featuring some lovely Moroccan-style dishes. As you can see, I am at my home bar this time. I am taking about a week and a half off, but that doesn't stop us from doing crafted cocktails. And this crafted cocktail is called The Last Word. You probably have never heard of The Last Word, but it is a really important cocktail as far as the history of craft cocktails in America goes. The Last Word was a Prohibition-era cocktail. It was probably invented about 1915, 1916, and it was introduced and first perfected at the Detroit Athletic Club. The first time it's written in publication is actually 1951. A gentleman by the name of Ted Sauciers, who wrote a book called Bottoms Up, references it as giving credit to Frank Fogarty. Now, Frank Fogarty at the time was a world-famous vaudevillian monologuist, similar to what you and I would call a stand-up comedian. He introduced it to the Detroit Athletic Club. It's unclear where he got the recipe from, but what we do know is that The Last Word was probably named after him being a world-famous monologuist, him always being able to have the last word. At the time, it was sold at the Detroit Athletic Club for about 35 cents, which at the time made it the most expensive drink that the Detroit Athletic Club offered on their menu. That'd be about $8.25 today. The Detroit Athletic Club at the time, just because it was Prohibition, probably used what we refer to as a bathtub gin. If we recall, gin is a base liquor, base spirit that's been steeped with botanicals, juniper berries and the like. What they probably did was poured either vodka or another crude grain alcohol literally into a bathtub, added some fruits, probably some oranges and some herbs and spices, and just let it marinate in their bathtub. Actually, fun story, the Detroit Athletic Club to this day still makes their own version of bathtub gin. So the drink, The Last Word, sort of after the 1950s, sort of fell into oblivion. Nobody remembered it, nobody heard about it. And then in about 2003, something very interesting happened. There is a small bar in Seattle by the name of the Zigzag Club. Now, the Zigzag Club was sort of a mainstay of the early days of Seattle, but they were having competition from these bars and restaurants opening up all on Pike's Place Market and really embracing the tech boom that was happening. So the Zigzag Club found themselves in a strange predicament where they needed to compete with the local bars that were opening up. So they hired a world-famous bartender by the name of Murray Stenson, who has actually won several international awards for bartending, and they decided to pore over history books to see what cocktails they could bring. He came across a 1952 edition of Ted Saucier's book, Bottoms Up, and thought that this strange concoction of ingredients might actually be fun to mix together. He introduced it to a lot of the early adopters of Microsoft and Amazon that were just getting the internet started in Seattle. Word of mouth grew. Then Murray Stenson traveled to New York, introduced the drink there, flew to San Francisco, introduced the drink there, and it really kicked off a revolution. At that time, there were only about 12 to 15 craft cocktail bars in the US, but with his national tour with this drink and the unique ingredients and the old methods of making cocktails, it really set off the craft cocktail boom that we see today. So let's make The Last Word. You're gonna wanna get your cocktail shaker and fill it with ice. Now it's equal parts of everything I'm putting in. So I'm gonna put in about an ounce and a quarter of gin. Now if you recall, this is our Luxardo Maraschino liqueur. Again, this is made in what's now Croatia, what was Italy at the time, the Dalmatian region. And it is a cherry-flavored liqueur, not as sickeningly sweet as today's maraschino cherries, but definitely has some sweetness to it. I'm going to add my green chartreuse. Now, chartreuse is a liqueur made by the Carthusian monks. It's actually been around since 1737. It's a French liqueur that comes in green and yellow varieties. The green variety is higher in alcohol, a little bit more bitter. The yellow one is going to be a tad less alcohol, still pretty potent, but also just a little bit sweeter. It's made from alcohol that's been steeped in 130 herbs, plants, and other flowers. It's one of the only liqueurs that will actually improve as it ages in the bottle. So I've got my 1.5 ounces or 1.25 ounces of the green chartreuse, the maraschino liqueur, and now I need some fresh squeezed lime juice. If you don't have fresh squeezed limes, lemon will work. Again, I've said this a few times, just make sure it's fresh squeezed. Please don't use the little plastic lemon-shaped lemon juice that we all have in our fridge. So I'm going to give this a really, really good shake. And because it is an old tiny cocktail, I'm going to pour it into my coupe glass. And you'll notice it gets a green tint from the chartreuse. And then I'm going to garnish it with a maraschino cherry. And there we have the last word. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, happy drinking.